I think everything's gonna converge a bit more. I think with the Steam Link you already have sort of a PC console. Steam is pretty much trying to make a PC console with the Steam box. I don't think it will matter that much if you're on a console or on a PC anymore. The type of controller you would like, it's probably somewhat determine how you game. So if you're a shooter, you'll probably want to use a keyboard and a mouse. And for an action adventure game or a game with Caromble, doesn't matter that much. And another thing that I think we'll see in the future is more and more things will start moving to a subscription model. Like pretty much like Netflix for games. And I think we're probably gonna go there, and I have no clue how that will affect game developers. It could be good in the sense that at that point people will start paying for how much they play. And I think that's a good reward model for a developer, because you you can naturally get driven towards games that people want to keep playing. So with consoles like Switch, they're a bit more exclusive maybe. It's currently getting a lot easier to develop on all platforms at the same time, and I think that trend's probably gonna stay. Also for small part-time developers like us, developing for consoles is gonna keep becoming more accessible. The only thing is that special consoles such as the Switch, they might have special input or special hardware things that you can utilize, and those might be different, but I think access to those features will be exposed in the major game engines such as Unity and Unreal, and I think those will be very accessible for small developers as well. I'm not sure if it's already going to happen for the Switch, but in the future I think you're going to see more indie games also on the more exotic platforms, as it were. If I want one thing from VR, it's actually a VR goggles that aren't like a full mask that you put over your face. I think VR is probably going to have the future, but I don't. For me, just putting those big masks on is going to be a showstopper.
Well, VR obviously is a big thing on PC right now, and I think, just like we've seen, the PC is where a lot of the innovation happens. Like with VR came out on PC first, and then when something does something really cool comes along, then it moves to the consoles. And I think PC is going to continue to be a place where innovation happens. The consoles are starting to catch up, but the PCs are still at the cutting edge. So I think we're going to see a lot of that continue to happen. Obviously, VR is the ability to be in the space, to be able to feel something. Because when one of these monsters walks up to you, when we have a spider monster crawl up to you, you very viscerally feel like that monster is really there. So as an entertainer, as a developer, to be able to make somebody feel something, that's super exciting. The hand interaction with like touch controllers and things like that you can use your hands in the space. It makes you feel so immersed. I think some of the things that are coming that I'm really excited about. I mean, obviously you see right now we still have a cord attached to people when they're playing VR. There's new technology that's coming that's going to cut the cord. That's really, really exciting. We've just started to see some things come about where there's going to be gloves where you can do full finger interaction in VR. I think that's super exciting. I mean, there are things coming, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty details, foveated rendering, where right now, rendering is really expensive in VR because you have to draw both eyes at 90 frames a second. And on a PC or a console, you're drawing one thing at 60 frames a second. What foveated rendering does is it detects where you're looking, and it draws where you're looking at a very high resolution, but outside in your periphery, it draws at a lower resolution, which is going to allow VR to be super, super clear without requiring as much computing power.
It's super interesting, the path that consoles are taking at the moment. I mean, you have these mid-generational things like the Scorpio and the PS4 Pro, which they take the same, well, it's not even the same base hardware, but they'll play the same games, but better, the same way that you'd expect a PC to be upgraded, where it will play the same games, but with more visual fidelity or a higher frame rate. Peripherals as well. We've hit an age where suddenly VR is a thing. It's difficult to prophesize, I guess, because obviously there will always be some kind of delta between PC and console. I don't know how we're ever going to close that delta. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and only time will tell. The issue there is always going to be controls. Take Rising Storm 2, Vietnam, for example. It's a game with like a lot of controls and a very complex control system. I mean, I suppose you could design it for a pad, but once again, PC and mouse players are always going to have like an inherent advantage over pad players. So it depends on the genre, really. A game which is primarily designed for pad, I can imagine like there being a lot of crossplay and connectivity. But so long as there's always going to be keyboard and mouse versus pad, I can't imagine that will take off. And now cut to like 5 years later when everyone's playing like the same games, and we'll see.
You know, one of the things that is really interesting about the way that the console generations have been upgrading is that the PCs and consoles are, at least on the high end, you know, pretty close as far as performance and whatnot is concerned, and you're starting to see crossover games where people can now play like PCs and consoles, same team, same time, you know, and that's exciting. In my opinion, I think the important thing, like as a developer, is that you really want to reach people with your game, and if people are more accessible on all platforms, that's really a good thing. I think that there has, you're right, been kind of this, you know, PC dominance, you know, like, or people who are PC, you know, fans can be a little aggressive versus their console counterparts, but I don't think that's absolutely necessary anymore. I mean, when you're seeing a lot of people playing PC games with controllers, you're seeing a lot of people starting to play console games with mouse and keyboard. You know, a lot of those control arguments are no longer valid, and then now you're starting to see games that have all this crossover, and I think that it's actually just better for games and game development as a whole, because the easier it is to reach the players in these different markets, the better it is for gamers, but it's also the better it is for developers. And I think that it's just going to keep getting better. I mean, there's no reason for us to divide more, right? We don't need to be divisive. We can be more united, you know, as players, I think, and that's good.